Ethan Carver stared blankly at the whiteboard. Numbers and equations danced before his eyes. Professor Miller droned on about quantum physics. It was just another Tuesday morning at Westgate University. Ethan stifled a yawn. He just wanted this lecture to be over. Ethan was no different from any other college student. He had his friends, his classes, and his worries about exams. The most exciting thing that ever happened to him was finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk. Little did he know his life was about to change drastically. The lights flickered. Students murmured in confusion. Professor Miller paused, frowning at the sudden interruption. Before anyone could react, a high-pitched whine pierced the air. It was like nothing Ethan had ever heard before. He covered his ears, but the sound seemed to pierce right through him. The whiteboard glowed with an unnatural light. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. Then, with a deafening roar, it shattered. Ethan, along with everyone else in the lecture hall, was bathed in blinding light. When the light subsided, Ethan opened his eyes cautiously. He was no longer in the familiar confines of the lecture hall. Gone were the rows of desks and the faint smell of stale coffee. Instead, he found himself in a vast, verdant meadow. Towering trees older than time itself reached for the heavens. The air was alive with the sound of birdsong and the scent of wildflowers. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around frantically for some sign of his classmates or Professor Miller. He wasn't alone. Scattered across the meadow, his classmates coughed and sputtered, their faces etched with confusion and fear. Professor Miller, looking more bewildered than anyone, tried to impose order. "Everyone, please remain calm!" he called out, his voice trembling slightly. But it was no use. The students were in shock, their senses overwhelmed by the sudden and inexplicable change in their surroundings. As Ethan took in the impossible beauty of this new world, a glowing blue screen materialized in front of him. Words scrolled across the screen, each one sending a fresh wave of apprehension through him. "Welcome to Atherion," the message read. "Your world is no more. Your life as you knew it is over." The next few hours were a blur of confusion and fear. Ethan and his classmates learned that they were no longer on Earth. They had been transported to Atherion, a world of magic and mythical creatures. They were shown their status screens, each displaying their strengths, weaknesses, and most importantly, their designated classes. These classes, they were told, would dictate their roles in this new world. Some were given roles of warriors, their stats boasting strength and agility. Others were designated healers, their screens glowing with symbols of restoration and rejuvenation. There were mages, rogues, and rangers, each with unique skills and abilities. Ethan watched as his classmates received their classes, a mixture of excitement and trepidation on their faces. When his turn came, he stared at the screen, his stomach twisting into knots. His class appeared in shimmering blue letters. Echo Weaver. There were no impressive stats, no symbols of power or magic, just those two enigmatic words. Confusion quickly gave way to whispers. Ethan found himself the subject of curious glances and hushed conversations. No one, not even the instructors who had brought them to this world, seemed to know what an Echo Weaver was. The other students, emboldened by their newfound abilities and roles, began to ostracize him. "An Echo Weaver?" scoffed Jessica, a girl who had been assigned the prestigious role of a sun mage. "What kind of useless class is that?" Her words, laced with a mixture of pity and disdain, stung more than Ethan cared to admit. He had always been ordinary, blending into the background, but now, in this world where everyone seemed to have a purpose, he felt utterly insignificant. The instructors, unable to provide any answers about his class, offered vague assurances and empty platitudes. "Your role is just as important as any other," they said, their voices lacking conviction. But their words rang hollow in Ethan's ears. He was surrounded by future heroes, warriors, and mages, while he was burdened with a class that seemed more like a cruel joke than a destiny. The weight of their doubt pressed down on him, suffocating any hope he had of finding his place in this strange new world. The meadow, once a symbol of wonder and possibility, now felt like a prison, a constant reminder of his apparent uselessness.